We are live.
Yep.
Hello, Internet. I am a very, very quiet Lost Wolf because there are people sleeping in my house. I am running this week's Game Club, and I have a bunch of folks with me. We have Mr. Yoda, say hello,
Hello.
and Mr. Scooter, say hello.
Hello.
And we have sometime Game Club contributor Nikolai, who has decided to show up because he played Primordia, or some of Primordia, but we'll talk about that. Say hello.
Yeah.
Hi.
So we're playing Primordia. Primordia is a point-and-click adventure game. It is in the vein of the old Sierra games and the old LucasArts games. This one feels very like it could have come out in that era, but probably towards the end of the era because it's very, very plot-heavy, and the characters are reasonably well developed, and the lore is reasonably well set up. The way Primordia works is it's after the fall of man, and there are these robots who have been uplifted, and they sort of revere and worship man to varying degrees. And the story itself is about a particular robot, Horatio, who is living out in the desert because he wants nothing to do with robot kind, and his power source get stolen. So he goes off and tries to retrieve his power source. A particular robot. Then the process he goes into a big city that's run by other robots, and he interacts with them, and that's basically what Primordia is about in a nutshell. So the first thing that happens when you boot this game up is it and I've talked about this at length on various other podcasts, it's very, very drab. There's not a lot of color to it. But everyone who I've spoken to who has been set up to talk in this podcast quite likes that. So let's talk about the visual elements first. I think it's a very kind of brown game, and I think that's problematic. But you folks all feel sort of differently about that.
Yeah, it's definitely got a very brown color palette, but that makes the times it uses color really stand out quite a bit, which makes both navigating the levels easier to find and finding items in the world and stuff like that, which a lot of adventure games have problems with because they're so colorful that everything can kind of get lost in the mix, and this one kind of streamlines that by having a very browned out world. It also makes sense narratively.
Right. Yeah, it's a very good narrative device in that everything is rusted, everything is old.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the art here, like the art for the cover.
Yes.
And it is very brown, but their eyes are all like this very bright, like almost Tron style, like teal or green.
Yes.
And I really actually like that about the game, where color is used, it's just used selectively.
Very sparingly.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I also think it has something to do with the fact that mankind has fallen. We as man appreciated color. Robots don't care.
Right.
Yeah, that's...
And that comes across the way Horatio speaks. He's very utilitarian. Crispin's funny and hilarious, and then Horatio's sort of, well, we've got to get this done.
Yeah, right. We're gonna die if we don't get the power core.
Yeah,
so
let's
go get the power
core. So let's go get the power core. Nikolai, did you actually play up to the point where we're supposed to be playing?
I played a little further.
Oh,
okay.
I kind of did too.
Yeah. But that's because Jason just bought it for me, and he said, "Here, play this game." And then today he told me, "Hey, we're going to be talking about it." And I just played it because I really enjoyed it, and so I played a little further.
I did send you Steam messages saying, "Hey, we're playing Primordia for Game Club if you're interested, and here's where we're stopping." But
but I forgot.
But that's fine. It doesn't really matter. I really wanted to play further myself, actually.
Yeah.
I don't mind if you do. I really don't have a problem if you do. I mean, my feeling is that I wanted to break it in half because I wanted to lead into Metropole, because Metropole is sort of very important to the story, but we'll talk about that in a minute. I just wanted to get to a point where you'd seen some of the world, you'd seen some of the robots, you'd seen some of the ideas and concepts, and we could kind of talk about that. So let's talk about especially the adventure elements, because there is, to some degree, a level of frustration attached to adventure games. When I was speaking to you, Squealus, you told me that you weren't really having too many problems with that.
No, not at all here. Not at all, actually. I haven't had to use the walkthrough at all with this game. Everything is pretty well telegraphed, and there's enough uniqueness per map, at least in my adventure game experience, which is admittedly probably smaller than all of yours. But there's enough uniqueness in each area for me to go, I think, like the, I'm going to use an instance here, like the rag, when you're trying to stuff the rag up the robot's nose, and I'm going like, man, Crispin's telling me it's coming right back out. So what can I do for that? And then I remembered the sticky grease, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And then it was like, okay, well, the map is very easily navigable, so I just click on this area, I go back, click on the sticky grease, I go back to the other map. It's very, I don't know, to me it flows very well, and there's no...
Yeah. There's stuff
no
like
frustration
that.
at all.
I lucked out on the sticky rag thing because I was just putting everything in the grease to try to find. I can't remember what I was trying to do, but I was like, the grease has to have something to do with it. And I was like, oh well, I guess some of this is a sticky rag now. So
the same thing happened to me. I was just I wasn't putting everything in the grease. I was just like, hey, wipe up that sticky grease with this rag that I found. And then I was
one
like,
of the first things he says is, "Oh, I can't just scoop it up." So I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, it must be usable somewhere."
Yeah.
So,
Well, he also Horatio comments about how, I was never able to fix that leak, and I was like, well, all right. I guess I'll try to fix the leak. How do I plug it up with the rag?
with the rag. Tie the rag on.
Right.
Yeah.
The one place that I think a lot of people get tripped up is in the junk pile, because it's not totally evident what you have to do there.
Right.
And
that
I know that in my first
bit.
playthrough, in my first playthrough, I sat there for a while going, huh? And then eventually it sort of clicked that I needed to use Crispin.
Yep.
And we should probably talk about Crispin. So when you're playing Primordia, there are two robots that you're in charge of. The one is Crispin. He's sort of silly and funny. He's your hints dispenser. The other guy that you're in charge of is Horatio, who is very, very, like I said, I want to call him dour, but he's not really. He's just very focused. He knows what he wants, and he's going to go get it, and, damn the consequences almost. He doesn't want to mix with robot kind. He just wants to sit in his little hollowed out ship and spend his days tinkering and making things. So for him, like, there's a point where you talk to Crispin, and Crispin's all, "Oh, Metropol's the city of glass and light. It'd be awesome to go there." And Horatio's response to this is basically, "No, Metropol is trouble."
Yeah.
And that sort of sets up the two personalities very well. They clash a lot, but they fit so well together. I can't imagine Horatio without Crispin, or Crispin without Horatio.
Agreed.
Right.
Yeah. It's a great dynamic between the two. It definitely seems like they had the voice actors in the same room, and if they didn't, it's pretty remarkable because they work off each other really, really well.
Yes.
Right. So let's talk about the other robots that we encounter, because there's a couple that you come across. Did anyone feel a bit weirded out by Alpha and Beta?
Yes, but I liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, like, when you think about them in computer terms, they're basically 2 bits of RAID array, and they're not complete. They need their third, they need gamma to make the RAID array complete. And I don't know how many people catch that they're a RAID array while you're busy playing through it. But it's interesting because they're kind of broken, and then you fix their problem, and suddenly they're okay. And they turn into this massive thing that we won't spoil for you. Actually, we should just spoil, because we spoil everything on GameClub.
Yeah.
It turns into this. It does the Sportron thing where there's these 3 little robots, and they turn into this giant thing called Goliath.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my god, how did that
That's a
happen?
good analogy. The Voltron thing. I really liked about the Alpha Beta Gamma thing was going upstairs and talking to the floater robot that set everything backwards.
Yeah.
I really like that.
And that was really clever too, because you think, okay, well, he gave me the code, but it's not working that direction. Then you realize, wait, he says everything backwards.
So he's talking
backwards.
backwards.
So I need to start from the bottom and go up.
Right.
Very clever little stuff like that. That makes you feel pretty awesome when you figure it out. Yeah.
And there's lots of. The other thing that I like about this game is it's littered with a lot of little computer things. Like, if you know your computer history, you'd understand what BSOD is. You know, it's blue screen of death. Or if you, some of the jokes are very computer related. There's one you haven't seen yet, which is N Metropole, where someone talks about 1023, which is a computer magic number. And I like that about it. It's very, robots are very computery, but they're very human at the same time. And that's great. I like that a lot about it.
Speaking of the jokes, and I don't know if I would really classify that in the same thing, but one of the things that really stood out to me was that we talked about this a little bit ourselves. Is that the lore actually feels pretty ingrained. It's like it's got an age. The man has been gone for a while. For a religion to form around man as a godlike figure, and the fact that Horatio himself stands in front of a skeleton, a human skeleton, and just thinks it's a robot. It's an old broken robot.
Yeah.
We could probably learn a lot from this primitive design, and something must have damaged this robot's head. I thought that was the coolest thing, because he didn't even know, right? And he's so into it.
Yeah, the world feels really real. Really real, which is a great way to put it. Go me.
Yeah, really real. It's the realist.
Yeah.
The most realist.
Yes.
But it's well set up for that, because, like you said, there's lots of little lore things, and the lore things happen in little dribbles. And the great thing is that the way Primordia is set up, it sets up all its lore so that it doles it out a bit at a time. Like when you're wandering around, you eventually encounter this really crazy robot. And he's got a bomb, and he's just sitting on a bomb. He's not interested in doing much other than doling out bits of this bomb to worthy participants of humanism. And like sort of from him and from Goliath, you slowly learn that maybe Horatio isn't all he's set up to be, but it's already evident, because the minute you talk to Crispin for the first or second time, Horatio explains that this is his fifth iteration.
Yeah.
The other thing that's also interesting, and we haven't talked about it all, is that everyone has a surname, and the surnames are from who built you. So, like, for example, Horatio calls himself Horatio Nullbolt, which means that he or something must have built him, but he doesn't know what. Yeah. But Horatio built Crispin, so Horatio is Crispin Bolt. And it's great because it imparts everything with a sense of kind of weight and history, because they have lineage.
Built.
Yeah,
Crispin.
Yes. I think I'm pretty sure that's what you meant.
Yeah.
Sorry, yes, it is what I meant. It's the other way around.
Yeah.
But it imparts also a great amount of sort of a sense of history and lore and genealogy, because you can go back and you can say, okay, who built this robot, and then go backward from who built that robot, and so on and so forth until you get to man-built. And we haven't encountered any man-built artifacts or robots in this world yet. So it does suggest that there's a lot of history happened here already.
Yeah. Which I was talking about that in Slack too. I got so into the lore and world building of this game that I was like, this would make a great setting for like a tabletop RPG.
It would, and I'll tell you now that there is a short story based in universe that takes place. I think it's a little bit before this particular story. And the thing that I find a little bit sad is that when we were talking to the developer of this game right after it came out, he was like, this was of the stories he made in the Primordia universe. Primordia itself was the best story he could come up with. I was like, but there are so many other stories you could tell. Why aren't you telling those too?
Yeah.
This is a fantastic story. I'm really loving it.
Don't get me wrong. But there's lots of little things that you could do around the story. Like Yoda said, it's a great setup for a tabletop game.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's just from the strength of the world building alone.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking of all the strengths that could be in a role-playing game, like character design. You could design any kind of robot you wanted. But anyway,
totally.
And you could too, because I mean, it's the only thing that will constrain you is sort of if your DM allowed serious power creep or not, because you could go crazy.
Yeah,
because the well, I don't remember how many robots you actually meet before. Like, there's like, I don't know, 6, because you've got Alpha and Beta, you've got the Goliath, you've got
Goliath.
Omega.
You do meet
Horatio.
You do meet Omega.
You meet the Guardian of the Bomb. I can't remember his name.
You meet the guy.
And
Eternal.
Ever Faithful.
The Eternal.
Ever Faithful Leobold.
Yeah. And all of them are really different. Every single one.
Right. And even the people that you meet once you get into Metropole are completely different again.
Yes.
Because there's lots of different.
Yeah, and that's why when I got to Metropole, I was like, I know I'm supposed to stop, but I want to talk to all these robots because they're all fucking awesome looking. They're all really cool, unique designs. Then none of them are something that I've seen in like fiction before, which is not easy to do in today's day and age. But they were all really creative. They were all really cool, and they all felt different too.
I personally am very interested, and I don't know if this ever comes up again, and don't spoil that for me, at least not yet, because I really want to see more of this game. But I'm curious if there's ever more of a connection between Horatio and Goliath, because Goliath seems in a way sort of scared of Horatio. He said, you of all people restored me, and why is that? I wonder. And,
and he's like, what? Why are you doing this?
Yeah, well, and Horatio has said multiple times his memory bank got all fucked up and shit, and he was like, "You're not Horatio, your name's Horace and shit." And then you
not in so many words,
but and stuff, but
he does say that.
Yeah, the mystery. It really drew me in. Everything, the world. It's great. I like it.
Yeah, I dig it a lot.
That's the great thing also about this game, like I said, is it doles things out very, very slowly. So one of the things you learn is that Goliath is afraid of Horatio. And then Crispin literally just says, don't worry about it. We've got thousands of other things to worry about. Don't worry about it. And, that sets up a mystery. What is going on there? Is Crispin telling the truth? Is Goliath telling? And it's great because it's the kind of thing that if you're remembering about it, it tugs at you all the time in various different ways because of how the different robots encounter Horatio. And it's so well put together. I don't think it's quite as tight as something like To the Moon, but it is very well built and very well put together and very well constructed. A lot of people are frustrated by the fact that basically this particular game is just a set of fake challenges, because really when you think about it, what they should have done was they should have gone right to Metropole first. But when you think about Horatio's character, he's doing what is in character for Horatio.
Right.
Like a lot of people are frustrated that they don't just drop everything and say, okay, well, we know that the big scary robot came and took the power core, so let's just drop everything and go to Metropole right now. But when you look at Horatio and you look what it would do.
Well, also, I mean, Horatio, it makes sense to me, again, narratively, that he would do that, because he's going to try and track down the robot first, which is what he's doing. He's going to try and track him down, and he's going to try to create an energy source before he goes to this place that he really just despises. He doesn't want to go there at all.
Go to, So the one thing that I need to talk about, and this is not something that you guys will kind of appreciate until you played the other game. This game for me has lots of thematic ties to another game called Inherit the Earth. and I've talked about this a little bit before in the previous Game Club podcast. Inherited the Earth is the same kind of story. Man gets wiped away. Instead of robots or machines taking over, we have uplifted animals. And it's very interesting to see the difference in tone between the two. If you go and look up screens, they're a lot brighter and happier. Inherited the Earth is a much more charming game. It plays on a talking animals trope. It is very naive. When you do encounter signs of humanity, the people kind of puzzled about what they're seeing and they don't really understand it. Whereas when you encounter the robots in Primordia, they know they're looking at a dead world. They understand that the fall of man has occurred. Mm-hmm. And it's very interesting to see the tone between the two be so different. Inherited the Earth, though, is not a game I'd inflict on you guys. There are problems with Inherit the Earth that make it unfun.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of old adventure games are like that.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I remember trying to go back and replay Grim Fandango and go, what was I on as a kid? What drugs was I taking? Why did I ever think that I could make an umbrella out of like a wet sponge and 3 carrots? Like, but there's nothing like that in this game. This game, everything finally makes sense when you actually figure it out. You're like, oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it a little bit, it makes sense.
You gotta cut the pipe to make a tiny little hose. Yeah.
Yeah,
Memoria. If you guys have ever played Memoria, that's a very similar.
No, I never played Memoria.
A lot of things.
I should.
It is really good, but you really have to pay a lot of attention because there are a lot of things you'll get early on that come into use later, and you may forget you even have them. And that sort of thing to me is problematic because I don't want to have to do that amount of bookkeeping to get through an adventure game like this. Although Memoria is definitely worth playing, it's really good. But there's a point in there where you have to make a ruby. And so what you end up doing is, first off, you want to just go try to find a ruby. There are vendors all over the place. You might be able to find one, and people are just like, no, we don't have anything like that. And, of course they don't, right?
Yeah.
At a point earlier on in the game, it seems like, and I may be getting this wrong, but at a point earlier on in the game, you're in a bar, and you end up with a little, I want to say a vial of wine.
Right.
Or something, and it seemed a little funny to me that I had that, but then somehow or another you end up in a mage tower and you talk to this guy and he's trying these different things to make liquid solids, and so this idea clicks. Oh well, I've got this wine, maybe I'll make it a ruby. Ha! It works.
Right.
Who would really think of that in terms of just coming across that in a story? And that was one of those things where I was just sort of, click on everything and see if it happens. And
and unfortunately, old adventure games like that. The big problem with Inherit the Earth isn't that, though. The big problem with Inherit the Earth is that there are mazes, and they're not fun mazes. They're like map this out and pray mazes, So that's why I never foist Inherit the Earth on you. I think it's a wonderful game, and I think that its story is very, very good, especially in light of playing Primordia. But just going back and trying to play that game with the setup that it has and the way it's built makes it difficult for modern audiences to appreciate it.
Yeah.
That they would get to the mazes and they go, "That's it, I'm out." There was one other thing I want to talk about very quickly. The other thing that's great about this particular game is we've talked about it a little bit about the sound design. It is a bit loud, though. When you boot it up for the first time, you have to actually turn it down a lot. But the music and the ambience and the voice actors are all wonderful. Because every single one of the voices seems to fit who you're talking to. When you talk to Ever Faithful, he sounds like he's off the rails crazy. When you
I was surprised actually too to see how many voices there were in the game. I didn't really expect that.
because it's an indie game, and so what you kind of think would happen is people would take would take different voices.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember really liking, and liking is not quite the word that I'm going for, but Alpha and Beta, they both have really harsh, grating voices that perfectly fit the characters.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So, and it's the feeling that I get is exactly the right one for what I imagine our characters, the main characters are feeling.
Yeah.
Right. Did anyone actually read the Bible?
Yes.
Yes.
I thought the answer to find out what my name was in there, so I read it.
Okay. Because I think it's pretty interesting because it's obvious from the Bible that lots of time has passed, because they think about things in a way that's kind of a bit warped.
Yeah.
Already.
Well, and you get a hint of that too because if is it near Goliath where you find the human skeleton and they go, this must have been a really primitive design for a robot, because this is weird.
That's the dome.
Dome, yes.
That's
with all the broken tanks and
right. Yeah. The other thing is that if you read walkthroughs for that, people have mislabeled that as a cyborg. But it's not really. I mean, it's pretty obvious when you're looking at it that it's a dead human.
Yes.
Yeah. But there's the skull and everything.
It was definitely telling to be like, robots don't even recognize what a human is anymore. Like, there's not even, there must not even be records of that around at this point for that to still be the case, which I think is cool. Because that's very different from any other world.
There are little bits of humanity all over the place, though. I mean, for instance, the tanks and the gun and stuff, but also in Horatio's ship, and I can't think of the unique. On the floor is a note that's a grocery list that somebody had.
Right. Yep. And I love that it's in your data pouch.
Yeah.
This might be useful information. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, sure. It's going to be the best useful information, I'm sure. But no, it's cool. Like I said, it's a unique world because in so many post-apocalyptic things like that, yeah, sure, maybe there'll be like robots who run the world, but there's always the human slaves. I haven't really seen too many bits of lore, world building, parts of media that are just there are literally no more humans, and it's the robots just trying to survive themselves. Right. I think that's a unique concept for a post-apocalyptic setting.
Yeah.
Right. The part of the reason why I played Primordia when I did was I did a bit of writing that was the gentlest post-apocalypse ever, and it was this idea where there were robots just running everything, and I wanted to see how their version of this diverged from my version, and my version was significantly different, and it was okay.
But no, I think that's a cool idea.
How different, but it doesn't matter. I was making a joke.
The other thing I wanted to ask was, did anyone actually play the record?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
That's a beautiful piece of music.
I guess I didn't find that.
Go and do that.
Where's
because it's very, very beautiful.
It's early in the game, in your ship.
It's very early in the game. It's a new unique.
Phonograph in the same place where the radio is.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even hover over that. I was like, I found the radio. Here's the thing I need. Cool.
Something else I wanted to, that I was thinking about was the unique's name.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Like there, you can see the the digital numbers that clearly it was originally. I never figured it out because I didn't play through the whole game, so I don't know if it ever is.
It's never revealed, but I'll tell you about it at the end because it's lore important. It is lore important. Those numbers are very important.
Okay.
But
yeah,
I really like. Yeah, it's very cool the way when you look at that digital font, you're like, there must be something more going on there.
Right.
Yeah. And there is.
It's just the top half, and it's clear to us because we've seen those numbers before, but not to the robots because I guess that's not common enough. Yeah. So they're just looking at it, with the the markings that are on here, it's unique. But
Yep.
yeah, and that just added another layer of mystery.
Yeah,
it totally does.
There is a mystery there. It never gets referenced in the game. I'll explain it to you when we're done.
Yeah.
Because it is actually when you learn about how that works, it's super cool that the designer went and thought of that. But yeah, so I assume that we're all feeling happy and excited about playing the rest of the game.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yes, it's a good game.
At this point, do we have any last thoughts before I close this half of the Primordia discussion down?
For me, we talked a little bit about the art early on.
Sure.
I think the art is really good.
Okay.
I really like. I don't have a lot to say other than that. The art is really nice. It's good looking. The problem I have with the art, I guess it's not really the art. It's the options in the menu. You can choose to anti-alias or smooth all these textures.
Oh sure, yes.
And don't do that because it ruins it.
Yeah, because
it doesn't look good at all.
Oh wow,
super jaggy.
Yeah, I didn't even mess with any of that stuff.
Yeah, the art assets are great just how they are. I would recommend bringing your resolution up though if you haven't done that, because that does sharpen some stuff up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing about the people that Wormwood Studios are working for is that they make kind of throwback 90s games, and Primordia's in that mold. If you go and look at Widget Eyes games, all of them are kind of in the this could have happened in the 90s sort of way.
Yeah, I was
and
looking
so that's
at
why...
Wormwood Studios' other small games they've made, and they all basically look like practice games for Primordia.
Yep.
Which is totally cool. They also have a very adorable concept art for Primordia 2 that his 4-year-old daughter has been designing.
I am looking forward to whatever comes out of the Wormwood Studios, because the writer is very, very good.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to seeing what he does next.
They are good craftspeople.
Absolutely.
Yoda, do you have any last thoughts about this half of Primordia?
No, I'm just really interested in finding out where the story goes, because that's what I want to talk about. But we don't really know much just yet. Aside from somebody
at this
stole
point,
your
unfortunately, the reason why I stopped at Metropole, like I said, is because I wanted you to see the kind of the idea of it. But the story is very much heavily geared towards seeing the last half of the game.
Yeah, and that's totally fine. And I have to say, as much as I love Loom, I think this is the best adventure game we've played on the GameClub so far. And I think there's a reason why, apparently, according to Wikipedia, it is the highest user rated adventure game on Steam.
Yeah, I saw that too.
And I think it probably deserves it.
Yeah,
it does.
It's very good.
Nikolai, do you have anything to add or say?
Not really. It's very good.
Really.
I'm gonna probably go back to playing it after this.
Yeah.
I definitely say we would all recommend this highly. Check it out.
Highly.
Even though the story could, totally disappoint me at the end, I think it's worth just.
No, I think that when you see the end, you'll be like, your mind will be a little blown.
Yeah.
Also, before we sort of close off, I wanted to talk very quickly about your comment about Loom. The problem with Loom is that I think that it spent a lot of its first half being slow and gentle, and then it spent a lot of its last half rushing through the game. Primordia doesn't do that.
Yeah.
Primordia actually has the right pacing, and I think it's... for me...
Well, it's also got, 20 years of extra dev time on it, technically. So they can do a little bit more technical things, like have all the audio and stuff, and not just have a quiet background while you're walking around and stuff like that.
Yep, that's true.
Not to knock on Loom at all.
No, Loom is a fantastic game for what it is, given the time and the constraints and everything. Mm-hmm. So what I'm going to suggest we do is we're going to meet up again next week. I will try to arrange time and a place where I can be with you guys again, because I'm still away. It may just be quiet like this again. I don't know.
Okay.
But the idea will be to finish off Primordia and then we'll pick a new game.
Cool.
So thank you so much for joining me for Primordia's Game Club. This has been Twinstiq, and I have had Schoolers with me. Say goodnight, Schoolers.
Good night, Screwers.
Say goodnight, Yoda.
Good night, Yoda.
Say goodnight, Nikolai.
Good night.
Yeah.
No, you're supposed to say goodnight, Nikolai.
I refuse. I'm my own man.
Very good. Good night, Grey Wolf.
All right.